those mat chances. And I think, though, one thing, we missed the opening in game 2 where Nepo was not doing well. Let's see what changes here. He's probably feeling more comfortable. And you know what's different? Maybe he doesn't feel like he needs to prove something or do something. He doesn't need to go all out so early on, because Arjun has punished him when he's been a little sloppy early on.
And this is what the score does to the decisions early on. It being a tied match right now, you know, the players do not have to go all out. When Nepo was down, you know, 1.5 to half, he probably felt like absolutely he needs to win. He needs to do something. But now he can relax a little bit. There is Armageddon in the event of a tie. So if we have a draw in this match, we will go to Armageddon, Eric, which means that he looks like he's playing a bit more comfortably. Early on, we can see an opening that's come from the Catalan.
Yeah, Nepo has well, both of these players, they play everything. But we're not repeating the Sicilian from game 2. That went really poorly for White. Early on, pressure already. Is this within theory? Yes. But if you're in Black's shoes here, you're playing Arjun, I have to contain that bishop on g2. Because White has the bishop pair early on. What's the compensation? That's the question. Are you giving White just a bishop pair and not winning a pawn or anything back? It's looking like that right now, and then I'm already favoring White's position. I like Nepo's position. If he wants, he can simply play pawn to e3, castle, and he has a future push where eventually that e3 pawn will push to e4, but White has time. That bishop on g2 is a great piece. All I need now, I want a castle, I want to place my knight on c3, and I don't think Arjun likes that, and he's played h5. A bit counterintuitive when you're playing against the bishop pair. Does it really favor you to open up the position? Let's see how aggressive he's willing to go, because in my eyes, feels like White is in a better spot for the position opening up.
Completely agree. I mean, this is definitely nowhere near the opening disaster we just saw, but I will say that this is a very comfortable position for Nepo. He has everything you could ask for from the opening. I won't say that it's only a 2-result game, because we have a long way to go, especially with this move, long castle from Arjun. He's definitely indicating some intentions on the king side. He's saying, okay, castle, king side, if you dare. So I wonder what Nepo is going to do with his king.
F5 is an interesting move, and I like it. The purpose of it is you want to discourage White from playing e4. If White ever pushes a pawn to e4, Black will take, and yes, Black's e6 pawn is weak, but then White's d4 pawn will be weak. So Nepo probably isn't looking to play e4. He's playing moves like rook c1, maintaining flexibility. But seeing the way Arjun's playing this opening, he's playing very provocatively. What does that tell me? If Nepo castles kingside, look for Black to play g5.
Yep. That move, it might happen even if he doesn't. But you know what? After that last move by Nepo, rook to c1, that indicates that he can no longer castle on the queen side here. So either the king is staying in the middle, or it will have to castle kingside. I can imagine, you know, maybe a move like a3, b4, knight a4 to c5 is another idea, but it does feel like Nepo's in this kind of no man's land at the moment, Eric, because he doesn't want to castle. He sees the aggression from Arjun, but if you don't castle, you're also at risk in the center.
And that's the e5 move, played immediately. When the knight was on c3, e5 wasn't possible. There's too much pressure on d5. Now e5 is playable, and if you take on e5, you allow that knight on c6, it's taking on e5, hitting the queen, and the d file is opening up, and White's not ready yet for the whole middle to open up. He hasn't chosen to castle. Great response by Arjun.
I'm surprised by knight a4. You know, without castling, without having that move in, knight a4 is very provocative, and Arjun has been playing in that style the entire game. He's waiting to get a move like e5 in, a move like g5, and in this case, it is perfectly timed in the center. Eric, it's difficult to react to. Yes, you can play knight c5, but things are falling apart, and your king in the middle means that when the e-pawn captures on d4, you have to watch out on the e-file.
Not only that, when e takes d4, the e-file opens up, and there's just a long-term weakness on d4, an isolated pawn. Yes, White has the bishop pair, but Black seems to be very active and very happy despite that. Arjun playing aggressively, finding the right moves. Nepo has slowed down, as I said. Not every player is like this, but when Jan starts slowing down, there's a couple options. Maybe he's looking for the kill, or he's uncomfortable. In this case, he's uncomfortable. He just had an opening advantage, and it's completely disappeared.
It has.
By giving up your best piece, that bishop on g2, that's not a good thing.
And knight c3 here is the move that makes the most sense. But you know what could happen, Eric? Knight c3, rook back to d7. if you take on e5, which looks like one of the only moves, the knight recaptures, and immediately knight d3 is a huge problem because knight d3 also comes with potentially knight takes on f2 afterwards.
Yeah, look at white's dark squared bishop. Black also has one, and black has their pawns on light squares. Feels like black is better suited for light square play right now. And what's the compensation? You're playing white, you're supposed to play for advantage. To me, black is comfortably equalized, and the play will revolve around the d file. King e2 is a good move. I don't see a great response from Arjun here that will really press white. But at the end of the day, we're not talking about an advantage for Nepo anymore. It's how he can stabilize and catch up in development and equalize again.
Exactly.
When you have Nepo on the back foot, you're doing well. Arjun is doing well right now.
Yeah, bishop f6. We have, pawns on light squares, h5, f5 for Arjun. And all those dark square pawns on the king side, it's tough to advance them at the moment. We're probably going to see moves like, of course, rook to d1. But, with knight d3 still there, I think he was concerned. So he plays rook c2. Maybe if knight c4, he can drop the bishop back to c1. And for now, knight d3 is not as impactful. It's still a great move, but it doesn't come with an initial threat.
Yeah, I think this is still fairly close to equal, but from the position we had, that's an accomplishment for Erigaisi. The question, I think he's going to spend time the next couple of moves because he recognizes that Nepo isn't too far away from completing development.
Yep.
That rook on h1 needs to join the game. Is white active? No, but he can't ask for everything. Just needs to get that rook into the game and watch out for any threats from Arjun. What would a threat be? Maybe knight b4. Maybe knight b4 and a2 is loose in some lines. Nepo plays knight a4, covering the b4 square. Maybe in the future I'm going to swing my rook from h1 to b1, but there's a threat. Once again, knight takes f2. After you double the rooks, there's a knight takes f2 on the board right now. How will Nepo respond?
And playing a move like rook d1 also walks you into a potential pin on the d file. You could never move your bishop because of knight f4 check. So you have to be very careful how you choose to defend this. Yes, rook f1 is possible, but I'm going to start thinking about moves like potentially even b5, Eric. Like, I think you can really start to get aggressive here with the position. Pawn to c5, pawn to b5. I think Arjun has a lot to play for.
You're right. Well, b5 is a threat. b5, if knight c5, I can trade. d2's loose. b5, if knight c3, I have knight b4, and the rook on c2 has no squares in the second rank, so d2's loose. So I see threats on f2. I see your b5 move. Big think required here. He's played bishop c3. I looked at this, and I was looking at bishop takes c3 Amon, because if rook takes c3, I thought there might be knight takes b2 with a tactic.
Yep, that is a great move.
But if you
means the knight has to take back,
If you take back with a knight, I have knight b4.
And rook d2 happens
is coming.
anyway.
But then the only other move is pawn takes.
Yeah.
But pawn takes is you're weakening your pawn structure.
It's a concession.
It's a concession.
It is, and I think that might have to be played as we've kind of gone through all the options here, and Arjun will have no doubt done the exact same. He captures, and Nepo pawn takes c3 looks absolutely required here. It would be a huge mistake, Eric, if he took with anything other than the b pawn here.
I'm surprised he hasn't recaptured right away. There we have it. Arjun with about 70 seconds more on the clock, and he's doing very well. But at the end of the day, material's even. Nepo is a tremendous fighter. Can Arjun continue to find ways to restrict Nepo? That's a key to the match. Don't give him tactics. Don't give him counterplay. This is game 4. So as black, I'm very happy to steer this towards a 2-result position. 2-result position, I want to be up on the clock, and I want a better pawn structure. I want to maintain that. If I fall behind on the clock versus Nepo, he scored so many wins like that in his career.
Yep, absolutely. c5. Now, there's an idea to play c4 to support the knight, but you also just want to maybe play c5 and then b6 next. The knight can always drop back to e5. I think b6 to support the pawns makes a lot of sense here. You can start to bring the king up, king c7, king c6. It feels like Arjun can improve his position with more moves than Nepo can, but look out for c4 because it has one idea. Yes, it gives up the b4 square, Eric, but maybe Nepo wants to play a3 and bring that knight on a4 to c3 and into d5.
One thing to look at when we have a position like this that's not fully equal or symmetrical. Why? Black has 3 pawns on the queen side versus 2. White has 4 pawns on the king side versus 3. Which side will use their majority and gain space with that? It looks right now that you mentioned a plan for black. Bring that king into c6. Maybe then I'll play a6, b5, start pushing you back. Nepo, it's not very easy to push the pawns on the king side with those rooks on the d file. If you play f3, it feels like you're weakening e3, f3, g3, if that's the only other move. So he's playing passive moves. He doesn't feel comfortable going for anything yet. But rook b1, I wonder what that's threatening. I mean, it doesn't have to threaten something. I guess one idea when the king is on b8 is the knight ever moves for black. Knight takes c5 is an idea.
Yep.
This might be a perfect moment to play king c7.
And I actually was looking at the move a3. I really liked a3 just to never have to deal with knight b4. It didn't feel like black was threatening anything immediately. So I was liking a3, knight c3, and then maybe knight d5 or leave the knight on c3. So we have to deal with knight b4 now.
The issue with this a3 move where I said knight d5 in the future is if black gets their king on c6 and maybe you find a way to get your knight on d5, black will have this idea of taking on c4.
Yep.
And that knight will always be loose. I know this is far off, but it's not the most stable outpost because c4 is weak.
That's right. Unfortunately now, not only do you not have a3, you don't have knight c3. I'm concerned now for Nepo's position in a very real way. Rook d3 played from Arjun. I think he's starting to...
That's a fantastic
He's turning
move.
this into a serious advantage. Rook a3 traps the knight, wins the knight. What do you do about it? You almost have to play rook b3, Eric, but
allowing rook
then rook
d2?
d2.
No, allowing rook d2, that's a full pawn, and I get command of the second rank?
Well, how do you stop rook a3? You have to play like rook c1 and try to play knight back to c3. So I feel like rook c1 is probably the move, but then rook a3, knight d3.
Yeah, rook c1, rook a3, knight c3, knight d3 is winning, I think.
I think it's just winning.
For
Because
Nepo's
even the rook on c1 hangs with check.
Do you know what he just did? I think he just pressed arrows on his keyboard. It looks like he went back to see what he played. I could be wrong. I saw some hand movement, but it looked almost like he was wondering, what did I just do?
What did he just do?
I didn't like rook b1 whatsoever, and he committed further. He played rook b2, and he's out of moves right now.
Yep.
Nepo is such a resourceful player. He needs to
But the
find
resources
something
have
here.
to be there. You can't find something that's not there. Rook d3 is calm, cool, collected. He's up 2+ minutes on the clock. And Eric, I don't see an answer to rook a3. The only way to keep material is to allow rook d2.
You want to sack the exchange sometimes, but it's not even a good exchange because you can't take back on b4. Rook b4, c b4. If you take back, I have rook d2 and I pick off a2 anyways. White's not even getting any sort of material recovery in those lines. Rook a3 is a threat. I think, Amon, you're right. Rook b3 has to be played, but we're staring at a lost position.
That's terrible.
Nepo's at 2.5 minutes. He just banged the table.
It's terrible.
No, I'm pretty sure he's using the arrows. I'm looking at his camera. He's thinking, how
did I allow this to happen?
this with white? This is game 4. I've put my opponent under no pressure, and my knight's about to be trapped. Rook a3, hitting the knight. It has to go to c3. It all comes down. Does knight d3 work? Wow. Knight takes b2, rook takes d8, king c7. No, he just takes it.
So if knight c1, he wants to take that. So he's actually won the knight back with rook d2. He's pinned it to the rook on d8. But he's facing, I was going to say, rook c2. And Eric, he's just going to lose so many pawns. But, you know, I credit Nepo for finding a variation.
It's a variation, but the reason he hesitated going into this is he realizes he can try to pick off some kingside pawns, but he's staring at 3 connected queenside passers.
Yeah, it's lost.
His king is on f3. It's not even a position that he feels like he can trick his opponent. He didn't play this quickly. This was reluctantly.
Yep. I think he'll throw some checks in. Okay, we'll see b5, I assume, from...
You could potentially...
You could just keep pushing.
Arjun has a couple of minutes. He's looking for more.
And it's not even close in terms of a race. Even though he grabbed 1 pawn on f5 there, look at the white pawns, e3, f2. They are not even close to making a threat.
So you just push the pawn to c2 and push the other pawn to b3, right?
I think so.
Look at Nepo's body language. He knows resignation is coming.
He knows it's lost.
Arjun just needs to find a move, and there's many winning moves here.
He has 4 minutes to find it, Eric. He's managed the clock perfectly. It's been just a brilliant game. He's chosen this. This looks like it'll be enough.
Pawn goes to b5. The pawn's going to push down the board. Push and push.
Yeah, you can't even play rook b5 to win it because you have to watch the c1 square. The c pawn will become a queen. This is it, Eric.
The rook is coming to a1.
That's it.
And that's it.
Wow. Arjun Erigaisi, Gen G defeats Jan Nepomniachtchi from Aurora Gaming, and Jan has been eliminated. Eric, what a turnaround after what looked like a momentum shift in Game 3.
What a turnaround. He took his chance.
truly, truly impressive, a deserved winner, and actually, you know, our first winner here in the quarterfinals. Eric, he moves on to the semifinals with an incredible performance. Honestly, you know, out of those 4 games, he played better in the large majority of them. He kind of had that blip in game 3. We didn't like that game from him at all. An easy win for Nepomniachtchi, but he turned it right back around.